Good afternoon. Tuesday afternoon, I went to Black Lives Matter Plaza, 16th Street in Lafayette Park, in front of the White House, and to see how it had been wiped clean or erased, essentially. Took a couple of pictures and just go to the rest of the pictures in a different format. You can see that you still can't drive on the middle part of the street. Looks like it's going to be a bike. I don't know if it's going to be a bicycle lane or what. Maybe it will be. But there's the AFL-CIO building. And then there's also an unusual fence in front of the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. You can come in front of the White House from 15th Street or 17th Street, but you can't come to it from Lafayette Park or 16th Street, which is kind of interesting. A little bit of a crowd yesterday in front of the White House. Don't know what it was protesting. But here's more pictures of there's the church. And here's a picture from Google Maps of what it looked like. Google Maps hasn't changed it yet. This used to be painted with Black Lives Matter. It's an aerial picture. And there's a picture from early June in 2020 when we were just kind of crawling out from the lockdowns after the George Floyd murder in Minneapolis, and the left was becoming very militant. We weren't going to be able to have gay pride that year, and instead we were having extremely left wing, almost Marxist kind of events and this is where the Black Lives Matter would be painted later with Trump in office, which was very strange. So let me just show a couple of videos. No longer Black Lives Matter Plaza. There's one C. No longer Black Lives Matter. Sony camera. Right. Notice the bikes are stickle area. They won't be able to drive on it. And that was the picture. That was the picture for it. And then here's one of the fence in front of the White House. A small protest. I'm not sure what it was. The traffic along the park is fenced off, and also picture for it, and a couple of high resolution pictures from the Sony camera. And let me just make a couple of other remarks. I think you might have heard in the news just very recently, Trump announced that the most of the tariffs would be put off for 90 days, except for China, if I got it right. You might have to check that because it changes every time you listen. But this was like 20 minutes ago. Um, and China might be up to 125% now. Apparently, Apple is moving its production, its assembly to India, is going to be able to do that relatively quickly. That's a little surprising that it could. And Samsung is already in Vietnam. But if it's true that China is the only country that's going to be tariffed for a while, then Apple could be the disadvantage. But it seems like Tim Cook is taking care of that. Um, but there is a problem with, with two things. First of all, we don't produce enough of our own critical items, particularly semiconductors. We can't remain as dependent on Taiwan as we are, given the situation over there. This is very dangerous. We could lose access to a lot of our semiconductor, being able to buy things at all, and if we don't bring some of the manufacturing of semiconductors back here and pay people to do it. Let's set up a few plants in Tennessee and Texas and Kansas and Arizona, various places, but we need to do it. And it would seem um, that the idea that the American people particularly depend on changing the economy into a service economy and don't want to do the menial labor of working on an assembly line or something, but want all the conveniences to be cheap, like the extremely smartphone, which I can't do without now. And if smartphones were to be 3 times as expensive, that would be a catastrophe for a lot of people. It could go up from $1,000 to $3,500 or something if we had to pay the tariffs to China. Um, we're in a bad position with not being able to do more for ourselves. I agree with that, and you could call it right-wing Maoism if you wanted. I've heard that term used, but there's a moral problem with depending on underpaid labor and not being able to pay people here. That's a serious moral problem. So I just wanted to talk about that today. With yesterday's little venture into the end of, the erasure of the Black Lives Matter Plaza, painting of the yellow and black painting of the street, 16th Street, in front of the White House, going up to Thomas Circle. First Baptist Church is beyond Thomas Circle, but that's all been scrubbed away. No, there's no more Black Lives Matter Plaza, and we're not willing to give marginalized groups as such the special attention that they're demanding. What is a group? That's another good question for another video. What is a legitimate group? But I do thank you for listening.